Those of you who are following the recent story of WikiLeaks and the release of State Department cables may remember that when companies like Amazon, MasterCard, and PayPal blocked WikiLeaks, something called Anonymous fought back, launching online attacks against those companies' websites. But what exactly is Anonymous? Here is an online video created by Black X Anon that gives us an idea of how they think about themselves.
We are anonymous. We do not forgive. And we do not forget.
Joining me now to take a closer look at Anonymous is Gabriella Coleman. She is a professor in the Department of Media, Culture, and Communication at NYU, and she studies hacker culture and online activism. Hello, welcome to the program.
Hello, thank you for having me.
So tell us more. What is Anonymous?
Anonymous is currently a protest movement that emerged out of the internet, although it's not exclusive to the internet, born in 2008 to protest initially the Church of Scientology. Since then, it has shown its face to support WikiLeaks. It has also converged with the protests in Tunisia and Egypt. And one of the sort of unique and unusual characteristics about Anonymous is that anyone can call its name into being. And so there are separate but parallel operations at once with Anonymous.
Who gets to do that with authority? Who gets to call themselves anonymous or pull some kind of, hacker activity under the guise of anonymous?
That's a great question, because although anyone can call its name, not everyone can do so successfully, right? So you have to have an aesthetic that matches the aesthetic of Anonymous, and we'll be showing, I believe, some images later.
We'll get right to that.
There's also currently a couple of different Internet Relay Chat servers, and Internet Relay Chat is where people come online and join in different rooms to coordinate protests and activities. And so there's two main servers currently running, one that kind of is directed towards the Church of Scientology, one directed at the more recent protests. And people can join these channels and coordinate an operation. And if it gets enough support from people, it will come into being.
All right, so let's take another look at another video clip that gives us an idea of how Anonymous defines itself. This one was posted by YouTube user Mark2377.
Who is Anonymous? In their most recent public statement, WikiLeaks is the only group of people to identify Anonymous correctly. Anonymous is not a group, but rather an internet gathering. Both Anonymous and the media that is covering it are aware of the perceived dissent between individuals in the gathering. However, this does not mean that the command structure of Anonymous is failing. For a simple reason. Anonymous has a very loose and decentralized command structure that operates on ideas rather than directives. We do not believe that a similar movement exists in the world today, and as such we have to learn by trial and error. We are now in the process of better communicating some core values to the individual atoms that comprise Anonymous. We also want to take this opportunity to communicate a message to the media so that the average internet citizen can get to know who we are and what we represent. Anonymous is not a group of hackers. We are average internet citizens ourselves, and our motivation is a collective sense of being fed up with all the minor and major injustices we witness every day. We do not want to steal your personal information or credit card numbers. We also do not seek to attack critical infrastructure of companies such as MasterCard, Visa, PayPal, or Amazon. Our current goal is to raise awareness about WikiLeaks and the underhanded methods employed by the above companies to impair the ability of WikiLeaks to function. What is Operation Payback? As stated above, the point of Operation Payback was never to target critical infrastructure of any of the companies or organizations affected. Rather than doing that, we focused on their corporate websites, which is to say, their online public face. It is a symbolic action.
So tell us a little bit about that video. Who was the character speaking?
The character was Anonymous. Since 2008, they've been using Guy Fawkes masks as kind of their icon, their logo. People will bear that physically when they protest on the streets as well. And what's interesting about the video is that it could have just been made by one individual, or it could have been made by a team. Many of the videos we see online were made by a team that do coordinate on internet relay chat. Many of the videos are just made by individuals and then released onto the internet as well.
Why is Guy Fawkes the hero?
Guy Fawkes is the hero sort of for accidental reasons. When the initial wave of protests were coordinated against the Church of Scientology in 2008, the organizers decided that they must be anonymous. And they had been discussing online. They came from an image board called 4chan, and there had been a sort of obscure insider joke to Guy Fawkes masks. And so they said, hey, let's use this mask when we protest on the street to protect ourselves from the Church of Scientology, and that's how it was born.
Now, one of the images, we're going to show a still image now from Anonymous. One of the images or logos that Anonymous uses a lot is a suit without a head. So we're taking a look at that right now. It looks like it's a suit without a head inside the UN logo or something like that. Is this meant to indicate that Anonymous is a leaderless organization?
Absolutely. That's what it's supposed to indicate. And probably the following question is it a leaderless organization? And I'm going to answer, for the most part, yes, for two reasons. The first of which is that there's these parallel actions. For example, there's protests against the Church of Scientology, which still continue today. And while some of those people participate with the protests to support WikiLeaks, they are kind of separate sort of trajectories and projects. The other element is that when people are deciding on a target, it's not a leader who decides. It's truly they deliberate, they vote, they poll, and so on and so forth, right? Finally, there's very, very, very strong anti-ego and celebrity ethic in Anonymous. And this is, newcomers are reminded of this all the time. If someone is showing that they want too much fame in the press, they're said, no, 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 they're chastised, right? So these are the different mechanisms by which the leaderless element comes into being. That said, two groups of Anon do carry more authority. There are those who create the technical infrastructure, such as internet relay chat, and you can be banned from that network, and people are banned sometimes. And second, those that put in a lot of work into Anonymous, their opinions carry more weight than others as well.
How did you get access to them to research them as an academic?
I first started researching them when they were protesting the Church of Scientology. And they met in the streets to protest the church. They would protest in front of the Church of Scientology and still do. So I was able to meet Anons that way in person. With the more recent protests, I also joined Internet Relay Chat, kind of explained who I was, and it was through that I was able to sort of gain the trust to kind of continue to be there as well.
Is it true, as the character in the video said, that Anonymous is not composed of hackers, but of, quote, average internet citizens?
So I would describe it in this way. I would say a small group are definitely hackers, by which I mean sort of very skilled with computers and have strong commitments to things like information freedom. But not necessarily a huge group. I would probably describe the majority of them as geeks. They have more media literacies than your average internet users. They may be video, they may be blog, and so on and so forth. That's a great mask. And finally, there are those definitely who were just internet users who've joined, but perhaps by participating, they too will become geeks as well.
And how big is Anonymous altogether?
So it waxes and wanes in terms of its both visibility and force. So it's hard to give a definitive number, but here are a few numbers that can help. So one of the largest forums to coordinate the protests against the Church of Scientology is called Why We Protest, and there's over 30,000 registered users. Probably not all of them are active. During the height of the denial of service attacks against PayPal and MasterCard, there were between 5,000 and 9,000 people on IRC, either lurking, contributing, watching, spectating. Currently, as of this morning, there were 708 participants on Internet Relay Chat. There's also others who are not on IRC who are also participating in Anonymous.
Are they mostly in one or certain countries?
It's a little hard to tell again, but between language as well as when people are logging on and off, I do think that there is a good bulk in the United States or North America as well as Europe. But there's definitely participants from Brazil, from Latin America, from Australia, and other parts of the world as well.
Some people call them online vigilantes. Is what they do illegal or immoral or unethical?
So it depends what actions. When it comes to the Church of Scientology, they have, for the most part, not engaged in denial of service attacks since 2008. That was the initial protest, and then it turned into a pretty traditional street protest. So in that regard, nothing illegal or immoral, although they do try to sort of still use a lot of grotesque humor, which they are known for, both in the street protests as well. When it comes to the current face of Anonymous, they engage in denial of service attacks. On the books, that's illegal. And in fact, so illegal that it could potentially carry 10 years in jail if you're convicted for denial of service attacks. I think that there is a case to be made that in certain circumstances, denial of service attacks can be ethically legitimate. It can be a form of civil disobedience. But the question is how to assess that.
And sometimes, as in some of the old civil disobedience demonstrations in this country, you know it's illegal as you're doing it, and the civil disobedience is you do it anyway and you're willing to go to jail for it.
Right.
So we'll see if it ever becomes that. But something that you've written about, but that most people don't know, is that Anonymous also has created a visual culture. So let's take a look at some more images, and you tell us what we're looking at and what it means. So we have one up there.
So this one's interesting because what it flags is not only their Guy Fawkes mask, but the fact that many sort of see themselves as upholding liberal commitments, such as free speech, and this is kind of signaled through the fact that they are quoting the Constitution.
Can we go right to another one?
This is, I think, a great image because of the fact that they're very aware that their roots are in the internet, and yet they also exceed kind of digital tactics in their protests as well. Exceed
digital tactics, meaning they go to the streets physically sometimes, things like that.
Exactly.
All right.
Although their roots are definitely in the internet.
Let's keep this slideshow rolling.
This one is interesting, too, because this kind of points to more leftist articulation.
It's reminiscent of Soviet-era posters.
Exactly. And what I have found on Internet Relay Chat is that Anonymous has attracted geeks and hackers from across the political spectrum, not so much from the right, but some you would call liberal, some you might call libertarian, and some you would call leftist and anarchist, and this poster reflects that as well.
Let's keep going.
This image was created soon after WikiLeaks released the F-bomb, I guess.
Does that refer to a word?
Well, I think it does, a bad word, and it sort of refers to the fact that, you know, people were like, holy Moses, after the cables were released.
After the WikiLeaks cables
Absolutely.
were released. And, of course, the universal symbol for your computer is waiting while it's loading something. Right. The hourglass right in there.
Is there as well.
One more. Last one. Looks like World War II.
Exactly. And this is not so usual in terms of the aesthetic of the suitless man or the Guy Fawkes mask. And so one of the important things about Anonymous is while there's a consistent aesthetic, people do play with different sort of creative options as they're parlaying messages as well.
So a great slideshow. Thank you for those. And WikiLeaks takes on, I mean, I should say Anonymous takes on causes other than WikiLeaks as well. Let's see another video, this one referencing the protests in Egypt.
Operation Mesh, an official press release. Dear citizens of dictated nations, you and your country may be expecting revolutions in the near future. After Egypt's recent course of action, we fear for every other country as well. Therefore, we at Anonymous would like to jumpstart Operation Mesh. The concept is simple. It will consist of 3 different technologies: BATMAN, a mesh network protocol; I2P, a secure, private, law-free, and espionage-free darknet program. Will encourage use of torrents because of how hard they are to stop without I2P. The theory is that it will be even harder when the seeders are untrackable. Additionally, the trackers are impossible to DDoS under the I2P protocol. Please join us in this effort to set the world free.
That video posted by YouTube user Anonymous World War III. And can you translate that from hackerese into regular English for us?
Absolutely. So this operation is interesting because it actually never really took off. It's one of the operations that I'm not sure I want to call it a failure because it still could take off.
This is known as Operation Mesh?
Operation Mesh. And it was sort of a desire to create technologies in a network under which you can't be surveilled. And in fact, that is quite difficult, although there's certainly technologies in place, such as Tor, that can help you do that. But what I do find interesting about the video is that it shows how different groups of individuals do try to bring into being certain operations. They're called operations. And some of the operations are wildly successful, such as the ones in support of WikiLeaks, as well as others for Egypt, which we can talk about. Others never really take off, in part because this is very technically challenging, I think. And then there's others which are not quite as international in scope as the ones with Egypt, Tunisia, and WikiLeaks, and yet still are quite successful. So, for example, a few days ago, Italian Anons organized Operation Italy, where they took down one of the main Italian government websites. On the same day, there was an independent protest as well. So they considered that a success, yet that's not really going to make it to international news necessarily.
And what is Anonymous's interest in something like the uprising in Egypt?
So that is a very interesting question, because what had happened was they were supporting WikiLeaks, and then they had heard that the Tunisian government was blocking WikiLeaks. So their ears and eyes perked up, and their attention turned to Tunisia even before the mainstream press was reporting. So they engaged in denial of service attacks, as well as circulating information to activists to help them evade censorship. So since our hands were quite in the Tunisian protests, when Egypt came into being, it was kind of a natural place to go to next.
Who did they attack for denial of service in Tunisia?
Mostly government and tourist websites, and they were also very, very clear not to attack the media, which is one of the reasons why I think that they do have a kind of ethics around their denial of service attacks. It's quite deliberative.
So with all that you've said here, Anonymous must have its share of enemies by now. Is anybody trying to cyber attack them, or is law enforcement after them? Has anybody been effective in slowing them down, and can Anonymous survive?
So the FBI has issued 40 subpoenas in this country. Scotland Yard has arrested 5 people in the UK. They're released on bail. And we will see what happens with the trials as to whether they're convicted or not and who is convicted. And when it comes to those trials, there's 2 possible scenarios. They get recharged as some of their own face criminal prosecutions, and there's another wave of protests, or it has a chilling effect as well. So we'll see with that. Aside from the FBI, recently a security professional by the name of Aaron Barr infiltrated Anonymous, supposedly with information of key players, and was going to give it over to the FBI, and Anonymous retaliated, breaking into Aaron Barr's email and releasing 50,000 of his emails. So that's what's going on right now.
Did the FBI try to get you involved?
Not yet.
Well, this has been fascinating. An important player on the world stage right now, and now I think you'll know a little more about them. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you.